Have you been to a sex doll brothel? Well, we have. Hi, I'm Dr. Marianne Brandon, and I'm here with my husband.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Abraham Morgentaler, and we are the sex doctors. So, Dr. Brandon.
Yes. We were sex doctors on location when we went to the brothel.
We were very professional.
We were.
Yes.
But it seems that it could be a topic of interest to many people. It was an extraordinary experience, wouldn't you say?
I think that what's extraordinary? Extraordinary in the sense of extraordinary, like beyond the ordinary, for sure. So I think that probably listeners and viewers want to hear what this thing is and why did you take me there?
Yes. Well, I took you there because, as you know, I'm a sex therapist.
I've heard that.
Yes. And I actually find the future of intimacy and sex tech among the more fascinating topics to read about and think about and ponder.
What could be more interesting?
That's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, technology is changing all aspects of our lives, intimacy included.
Before we start, a small disclaimer. The Sex Doctors podcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice.
Welcome to the Sex Doctors, featuring Dr. Marianne Brandon, clinical psychologist and diplomate in sex therapy, and Dr. Abraham Morgentaler, renowned urologist and expert in sexual medicine and testosterone therapy. Together, they bring you expert insights into sex, intimacy, and relationships. Let's dive in.
I believe in miracles.
Sometimes in good ways, sometimes in not good ways, but definitely we're going through a transition right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So listen, you've taught me about the chatbots.
Yeah.
And the sex robots.
Yeah.
And so really, this was just one more item in that sort of brave new world.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah. So, I wanted for years, these have been around for a while, sex doll brothels. They're not new on the scene, actually. Sex dolls have been around for a while.
For sure.
If you just go into your favorite search engine and put sex dolls in, you're going to see many different companies that produce these dolls.
Right. All over the world.
And that's a learning experience in and of itself, just to see what's available with regards to sex dolls. For a couple $1,000s, you can get,
a sex doll.
Yeah.
Some of them look fairly human.
Yeah. Shockingly sexy.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so I felt like, and I also lecture, to therapists on the future of intimacy, because I think as therapists, we need to be able to have these conversations with our clients because people have sex dolls. They're not popular.
Right.
And they're not going to be popular for a while, I think, because they're still sort of in a basic kind of, they're heavy, they're hard to move. They're not like, if they went on sale for the holidays this year, I don't think.
Yeah. I wonder, though, how many therapists or sex therapists have really had to deal with individuals who came in who had challenges with their sex doll. Are those relationship issues or what?
Well, for most people, no. The sex dolls are amazingly compliant.
Yes.
They're
They'll
so cooperative.
Yeah, and they'll put up with a lot without complaining.
Right. So, I hear about relationship issues because maybe the partner doesn't like the doll, but I don't really hear about relationship issues between the person and the doll. But that's, maybe for another.
Sometimes they might complain that the sex doll, their partner, is just too quiet.
They might complain about that, but I've not heard that complaint.
No.
So, but at any rate.
But wait.
Let's go back.
Give it time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I, for several years really tried to get into a sex doll brothel so that I could see what was going on. Not so easy to do.
Did you need an application form?
Oh, no. But I don't know if it was that I was female. I don't know that I ever said to any of these businesses that I was a sex therapist. But at any rate, I couldn't get us in. I was always asking as a couple, can we, make an appointment?
And you can find them scattered around the world. I remember when you were doing your research trying to do this.
Yeah.
There's one in Italy.
That's right.
One in...
They were all over there.
Somewhere else in Europe. Germany, maybe.
Brussels, maybe. I don't remember. But they were, Germany for sure. Anyway, so I finally got us in. I was feeling like that was a huge victory.
Right.
Yeah.
No, Brussels was something else. Brussels was a conference
Oh, right.
on sex and love with robots.
Right. Right.
An amazing conference,
Yeah,
which
that was.
I also attended. Thank
Yes, you did. I asked for your chaperoning assistance at all these adventures.
you. Have provided me with so many experiences, fascinating experiences. I never would have been
Right.
experienced before without you.
Well, so this brothel I thought was really interesting. So it was in a strip mall, if you recall, and that's not a joke. It was
It
in
sounds like a joke, a strip mall.
You know, like it
But
was
nobody was stripping,
nobody was stripping. It was just a mall, like an outdoor mall,
right?
and it was behind a locked door, but it was right out there
Right.
in a business park.
Could have been
sort of.
almost any kind of business.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
could have been. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it was like a medical practice in there, like a medical office building, like an outpatient medical building. Because so you go in you get through the locked door.
Yeah.
You wind up in a waiting room. Truly, it was a waiting room, right?
Yeah.
There were guys waiting.
Right.
So you walk through the waiting room, and the nursing station was on the left, if you recall.
Yeah.
Now instead of nurses, they had technology in there.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Okay, I'm like going with the analogy, like
Yeah.
medical. Nobody did this, but I could have imagined somebody taking your pulse and blood pressure before
And after.
and after. But nobody did that.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, and they didn't ask for your review of systems or
No.
do you have headaches, abdominal pain?
None of that.
None of that.
No.
Really, they wanted to know, do you have a credit card?
They did know. Yeah. But yeah.
So you walk in.
Yeah. So the nursing station on the left, that's filled with technology.
Yeah.
You walk down the hall, and those little exam rooms, like if you were in an outpatient medical practice, but they all had dolls in them. You remember?
Yeah, I do.
And then they had like a doll in the hallway, like inviting you, whatever.
A doll
Remember?
sitting
That
at
was
his
hilarious.
desk, you're wearing lingerie.
Yeah.
Scantily
Yeah.
clad doll.
Now, this place was like the cleanest place I've ever been in my life. Would you agree with that?
Right, you had to take off your shoes at the beginning.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was
But-
sort of like a Japanese
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And they had little slip-ons for you.
Yeah.
Very clean.
I don't remember that part, but
Very clean,
I remember.
very well lit.
Yeah.
And I thought kind of in its own way, appealing looking. They had posters on the walls of dolls,
Yeah.
female dolls,
Yeah.
scantily clad, like
Yeah.
shot as if they were boudoir pictures.
It's so funny. I don't remember any of that. We remember different things.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the advantage of having two sets of eyes there, right?
Yeah. I remember in some of those rooms, they had one doll. Some they had two. They had all kinds of sex toys. They had parts of dolls.
Parts of dolls, for sure. Yeah, why don't you explain why that was?
Well, parts of dolls are, you don't actually have to have a whole doll to have sex with a doll. You really only need certain parts, certain orifices. So they had those.
Yeah, well, they had like the head.
A head on a pole, right? Wasn't that? Wasn't that right? Is that right? Am I remembering it?
It sounds awful though, like that. It sounds like some Middle Ages torture thing. Yeah, you have a head on a pike.
It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. But this was supposed to be
my
attractive
God.
and appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a female head at the right height for certain kinds of activity, which I don't know that we need to spell it.
I think they've got it.
I think they got it.
Yeah. And then you were to put on virtual reality porn on remember that?
Right.
Yeah. So that you had,
That's the key. That was the key to the whole thing. It wasn't just the sex dolls.
Yeah.
It was virtual reality
right.
where you got to use the sex dolls as if they were your virtual partners.
Right. Right.
Yeah, incredible. It's actually an incredible idea.
Well, they thought so. The couple that owned this,
Yeah,
was a married couple.
yeah.
They were pretty impressed by their,
By their own stuff.
right.
Yeah,
And we had dinner with them.
yeah. And they seemed
Yeah.
very evolved.
Yeah,
Right? They
yeah.
just thought this is what people are looking for.
Yeah.
And they wanted to create a clean, safe environment.
It's true. The argument was that for couples with desire discrepancy, when one person wants more sex than the other, which is typically the guy, not always. So I hope people don't get mad that I say it, but it's
I'm not
true.
mad.
Thank you. So for them, they thought this was a great place for the guys to go so they couldn't be like, they wouldn't be cheating on their wives.
Right. But they had stuff for women too.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they were ready for anything.
Much less.
They were prepared for any possible scenario. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had stuff for women too. They had that, I think it was Sibian
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
they did.
Yeah, where it's like a device that the woman can mount and it
Yeah.
moves around like
a horse kind of. Like riding a horse
at
kind of.
the Western
Yeah.
bars where
Right.
they throw you off, but this one's not supposed to throw you off.
But here's the thing. I am going to bring this back to serious. Okay.
The whole thing is I'm so serious.
Okay. Okay. Because the thing is, like, yes, they had stuff for women there. And so that's true. But what I see with all these kinds of sexual adventurous stuff is that while women may do it too, they do it in with a different quality than men do.
What is that? Tell me what you mean.
So I'm going to use an analogy of strip clubs because most people know that a little bit, and this will make more sense for them.
Yeah.
So, do women go to strip clubs? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have strip clubs like with male dancers particularly for women clientele, this kind of thing, right? Right. But if you go to a strip club for men, there will be women, but mostly are men there, and women are stripping. And while there'll be the occasional bachelor party where, the guys are cracking up and being silly, for the most part, nobody's laughing in that strip club.
Correct.
It is not funny.
Yeah.
Okay. So the guys are in there getting their needs met. They're not joking. And like, it's a very serious atmosphere in a certain way.
Yeah.
Everybody minds their own business and it's serious.
Sometimes you get groups of guys.
Yeah.
And they'll like egg each other on. And
true.
But some of that is sort of discharging some of the
anxiety.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for the most part, that's a serious atmosphere.
Yeah. Right? There's business going on.
Okay. Now, you go to a strip club where there are guys. Right, there's business going on. There are guys dancing, and it's primarily for women.
Right, like Bananarama.
Whatever. It's like...
There's one up in Boston, the Golden Banana. I think.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. We lived in Boston. Are you sure?
I'm sure, but I haven't been there. And I didn't take you there.
No. So, in those environments, it's just funny. Everybody's drunk.
Right.
And laughing.
Right.
So it's just like a whole atmosphere of silly and crazy and socializing. That's what it is. It's not about getting needs met in there. And so that's the difference in quality. So it's not just quantity that guys do this stuff more. They do it different. Mm-hmm. And so I would argue this brothel is another example of that. They had stuff for women, like to have a crazy time, whatever. But for the most part, this was an atmosphere to get needs met, and it was oriented for men, right?
So you're making the point, which you've made before, that men and women are different sex.
I am making that point, yeah.
Not the same.
Not the same.
Can be similar.
Can be similar. That's right.
Right?
Yes.
I know. I've had this conversation with you before, and I think it's an important point.
Yeah.
Right? This idea of equality being identicality, like things being exactly the same, it's not right.
It's not right. Equality, absolutely true. Identical, not true.
No.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People forget about this, but, during sexual development, while the male fetus is still inside the mother's body, there is a spurt of testosterone that happens in the 8th or 9th month that is said to imprint the brain. In other words, it's a transient thing. It happens for a little bit. Testosterone levels go up and makes the brain male-like.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another little spurt shortly after birth. And then there's almost no testosterone at all until puberty hits. But to say that none of this stuff matters or it's not real, there are real differences between little boys and little girls. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was picking up one of my daughters, I forget which, but I remember the experience. They both went to the same preschool, and I was waiting to pick them up. I'm waiting with the mother, and she had a little boy, and we're watching the boys and the girls. So they're 4 years old or so, right? And their behavior is completely different. Right? So the little girls are doing their tea parties, and the boys are literally bouncing off the walls.
Yeah.
And the woman said to me, oh my God, did you see the differences? That's all the testosterone, right? And I hopefully wasn't overly pedantic, but I explained that the testosterone levels at that point were the same for boys and girls, but that they were different. And she had an interesting thing. She said, my husband and I decided that we were not going to allow any guns in the house, no images of guns. We don't let our kids watch, our son watch cartoons or anything. And I realized it was all futile and biological. When having seen none of that, one day I made him French toast, and he fashioned it into a gun.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And according to her, she didn't think he'd ever seen a gun. Maybe he'd seen something in some cartoon somewhere, but they had protected him as much as he could.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see little girls doing that.
No, that's hard to imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, equality for sure, but males and females the same? No, I'm sorry, it's not so.
Right. And so, that's a topic I think that we'll cover quite a bit. But in my opinion, it's when couples really understand and appreciate the differences that they can fine tune their sex lives. So they can adapt those realities to make their sex lives as satisfying as possible. It's when things get ignored that they don't understand how to fix when there are problems, and problems are inevitable, right?
Yeah.
They don't understand how to fix it if they don't understand the origin of the issues.
Right.
So that's why I think this is such an important topic. As a sex therapist, it's an integral part of many of my therapies,
Right.
and helping people achieve what they want to sexually.
You got to start with what's true.
You do. You got to start with what's true.
Yeah. So, sex doll brothel with VR.
Yeah.
So, have we explained completely how it all works?
I think so.
Really?
Well, I don't know. Is there any?
So let me just add that we were there professionally speaking, of course.
Yes.
And for those who are wondering about how this all works, so the guy puts on VR glasses, virtual reality glasses.
Or the gal, depending on.
Or the gal, depending on.
Yeah.
And then what the sex dolls are there for, with the VR glasses and VR porn, you get the feeling that it's like a first person, I don't know, game, like it's happening to you, right? So you're positioned visually as if, like you can see legs coming out below you that are supposed to be yours. You know they're not yours, but it kind of feels like you're positioned as if they were. And then stuff happens to you, or for you, or whatever. And then the dolls, and especially the orifices of the dolls, become whatever's there in the room is a substitute for whatever it is that you see.
Yeah.
Right?
And people are probably wondering, what about cleaning the dolls?
Yes.
And so for the most part, these dolls have like pop out genitals. So they pull out the genitals and wash them up.
Yeah. Yeah. The owner was very, very proud of the extent to which they focused on cleanliness.
That's right. And there were like hand sanitizers and stuff everywhere, weren't there? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, just jars of it.
Yeah. And condoms were available if you really wanted to. Yeah.
Right.
Not to prevent pregnancy.
No. Okay.
Disease prevention.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for specifying.
Yeah, because I don't want to leave anybody hanging trying to figure it out.
Okay. Well, yeah. So that was a very interesting adventure.
Yeah. So what did you think of it?
I mean, I thought it was interesting. I felt like it was important for me to see and know this, so that I can bring that to my lectures. But you know what I remember? I remember we drove out and there was some sort of traffic. I don't know if it was an accident or something. I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a line of cars. And I'm like, oh my God, we're never going to get out of here. Like I was ready to go get out of there.
Right.
I was ready. And then we're just like stuck in traffic. Do you remember that?
No, it's interesting that what people remember that. I might.
Get me all.
I think I was still processing what we had just seen. But here's a question. So let's say you have a client
Yeah.
and maybe he's in a relationship, maybe he's not, but he needs to have his sexual urges and needs met.
Mhm.
And this isn't true today. There aren't very many of these sex doll brothels.
No, in fact, I
very, very
think
few.
so. What I know about the US, and I don't know that this is fact or fact still, is that there was some sort of um, several attempts to create shops where you could like try out the doll to buy it, but there's like a blurred line between that and is it a brothel? And so those haven't flown, like those haven't been able to
Yeah.
open. So one was in Texas, one was in Vegas. And you know what? This stuff changes so fast. I have to tell you that I could very well be behind in my knowledge now, even though that was accurate like a year ago.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm sure there's zoning issues,
Right.
right? And probably all depends on how the business is advertised or
mhm.
described. But here's my question
Uh,
to you: is that would you ever recommend
Oh, I have.
that somebody go to one of these?
Well, I haven't recommended they go because I've been unaware of any that are open for
Right.
business in the U.S.
But if one were available,
Well, I've recommended that they buy dolls.
you have,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and why don't you? So that's not something I can let pass
Oh.
easily. So under what circumstances would you recommend that?
Well, you know, if someone feels like they need more sexual stimulation, they're either in a relationship where their partner, for whatever reason, isn't, you know, sort of up for that, or they don't have a partner and they want a more realistic experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So largely because of your interests,
Mm-hmm.
I've also been happy to have watched at least one documentary, and there's also one fictional film
Oh, yeah.
that involves sex dolls.
Mm-hmm.
And the documentary I remember was, if I remember right, was from the UK. And they had a few individuals, males, who had their sex dolls. And one of them had a few of them at home. And he had his favorite, though. He would dress her up.
Yeah.
And apply makeup, I think. And but he was very attached to her.
Yeah.
And it was somebody who, I don't remember if the wife had passed or if he'd never been married. But, you know, we've talked again how with some of the sort of the new technologies, like, for instance, chatbots, you know, who would have a romantic relationship with a chatbot? There are a lot of individuals
yeah.
in this country, in this world, who just are socially awkward or they're isolated for one reason or another.
Yep.
And that probably that's a reasonable group that might find some kind of benefit or satisfaction from this. What do you think?
I think that's right. And it's also the case that some people just don't have a willing partner, right? It's not even a matter of being awkward. It's that maybe they have a partner that doesn't want sex or something like that, and they don't want to do what they would consider to be cheating or whatever. So there's a variety of reasons, but absolutely I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So you got to respect the fact that these people are trying to find a solution that works, you know, for their partner or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Do you think it could ever be therapeutic? Let's say it's a man who had premature ejaculation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I tell you what I do encourage is sex toys that kind of mimic bodies, like that can teach people about PE. So yeah, I think a doll is an expensive version of that kind of therapy, which I recommend all the time.
Right.
You know, you can go on, you know, Amazon and get a sex toy that mimics the inside of a body.
Right.
And I use that, or, you know, encourage guys to use that when they're trying to learn how to last longer.
Yeah.
So, but a sex doll, that's like, you know, $5,000 versus, you know, 60. So, no, I haven't recommended a doll for that reason, but I could see it being useful.
Yeah. Anything else you want to tell the world about
No.
sex doll brothels?
No,
No?
that's it.
Do you think, as I recall, the owner thought this was going to be an
Yeah.
incredible physical experience?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any likelihood that that's true?
So my feeling is that there's such intensity available already online that people are going to be able to create all kinds of experiences, really, as the years go by, very intense experiences in their own home for much less money. And that's really, I think, what's going to be happening.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Well, so you've heard about it here first, probably. Sex doll brothels, yes. The sex doctors are going to keep it. We're going to keep bringing you this stuff.
That's right. So if you like our show, please subscribe.
Give us a thumbs up,
Yeah.
write a review,
Yeah.
and we hope to see you again for another podcast. Goodbye, Dr. Brandon.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to The Sex Doctors with Dr. Marianne Brandon and Dr. Abraham Morgentaler. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tune in next time for more expert advice on sexual health and relationships.
I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing, you.